What up, witches, and welcome to Witchin and Bitchin, a podcast. I'm your host, Darren.
And I'm Vicky. How are you all? I hope you're having a wonderful day and you're doing really, really well.
And for anyone that is interested, we recorded this episode on the day after the supermoon in Scorpio. So, full disclaimer: Vicky has lost the plot.
I haven't. I'm very calm and
Sure.
I was
If
just looking for
only,
my tourmaline or something. I'll hold that.
if only I was recording for
I
some
know.
behind the scenes footage, it would have been hilarious. Because I've literally just been sitting here smiling at her while she's just like a Fruit Loop on camera. It's been hilarious, entertaining. Normally she's the serious one, and I'm the one who has to be reined in.
Has to bring it in.
I'm like,
I'll
it doesn't
promise
happen
you.
often. I thought I'll just let her ride it out because, use it up before we record.
That's it. And see, I'm very shocked that you didn't actually have it recording, because it always seems to be that we record the bloopers that I do when it's the things I do, not what you do.
Oh, because I have the power and I get to control. I get to control when
I
we
get to
record
control.
shit.
That's true. Very, very true.
So aside from the astrological relevance of this time, there's also it's actually that's still astrological.
It actually is. Yeah, it's still astrological. Oh gosh.
Yes.
It's happening already.
So what are we talking about today?
So we're talking about Samhain.
Yes. Yay. And now for any of our US listeners, because I know about 36 or 37% of our listening folk are located in the United States. So for any of you in the Northern Hemisphere, you're probably thinking like, why are you talking about Samhain? It's nearly Beltane.
Yep.
No. We're from Australia, remember? So you're getting
it.
an education from the deep south. The deep south.
Deep.
Like across the equator, over the ocean, other side of the world.
Yeah, completely other side. That's it. It's not usually it's the other way. We always have to flip things around. So
yeah, I'm so sick of flipping things. No, seriously, it's so hard. Like everything we do has to be flipped, and it's just like, ugh.
I know, and just everything that you find, like even if it's on like social media or on the internet or whatever, like everything is the wrong way around for us, the wrong time of the year.
But on that note, is it okay if I do a quick shout out?
Of course.
Because we have someone who's become an avid listener of ours, and apparently, and I completely forgot that he listened to our podcast. So when I was talking to him via Facebook chat, I was like, because I was complimenting him on his accent, and I'm like, do you know what my accent sounds like? He's like, bitch, I listened to your podcast. I'm like, oh yeah, right. I forgot. So quick shout out to Anthony and Jared. I hope you guys are doing well in Florida. So hopefully y'all come out of that lockdown bizzo soon, because I know America's had it really bad. This pandemic has been going on. I know people in the West Coast that have been in lockdown for over a year now.
Oh, really?
So they haven't been able to see family and friends for that long.
That's a long time.
So I used to bitch and moan and complain about 8 months. I know. But a year is like a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Because that feels like a lifetime ago when we came out of lockdown in Melbourne.
I was going to say, it is a little bit, we've kind of become a little bit removed from it a little bit here in Australia, because we've kind of come out of all of our lockdowns. And if there is lockdowns now, it's only
they're like 3 days, 5 days. Like they're like nip it in the
butt.
Ones.
Yeah, they're just little ones now. So
yeah, thank God for that.
Yes, that's it. Thank the gods.
Thank the gods and the goddess and everyone else for that.
Everybody, yeah.
So let's get on to it now, Vicky. We'll start off with even though we've already spoken about Samhain in our Belloween episode, we did that as a joke because obviously Beltane and Samhain and Halloween all kind of happen at the same time for us.
Yeah.
So some of the things we're going to be talking about today may be a bit of a repeat from what you may have already heard, but we're wanting to focus on Samhain specifically. And also, we're not going to be touching anything Halloween based, because even though technically trick-or-treating and stuff is done at Samhain, because we're from the Southern Hemisphere, Vicky and I treat Halloween as a separate thing to Samhain, because for us, it's opposite time of the year.
Yeah.
So we generally do Halloween on the 31st of October.
Yep.
And then we do Beltane on the 1st of November. Yep. And then we do Samhain on the 30th of
30th.
April.
30th, yes.
30th of April.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we separate the three events as three separate things, just so you're aware.
And even like historically anyway, Halloween itself isn't the same, especially like how it's celebrated or whatever now. It's a very commercial kind of thing, whereas Samhain is much more of a spiritual, internal.
Well, now I can dress up as a sexy Scottish man for my Halloween.
You can. So yes, I did want to mention that those who are watching on YouTube can see the beautiful plaid that you've been dying to wear. I know.
Yes, I know. I have been. So anyone that follows me on social media will know that I have been doing some deep diving into my family ancestry
Ooh.
as well as my husband's.
Yep.
And I decided, because I like it, that I would invest in the Douglas tartan.
Which is so cool.
It's
Which
actually a pretty
ties in
one.
perfectly because it's all ancestry and talking about your ancestors and following through with it all. So it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's why I thought I'd wear it today.
Yeah,
Other than the fact that I'm
perfect.
addicted to Outlander and all that other dribble.
It's got nothing to do with Outlander at all, has it? It's all
No, nothing at all.
nothing. No, nothing at all. All right,
So,
let's go.
yes,
Let's get
Vicky,
into it.
tell
All
us
right.
some fun stories about Salmon.
So I'll let you know what it is. Okay. So it's one of the greatest abbots as well.
Mhm.
So again, like we said, some of this might be we've already gone over, but I'll briefly go over everything so you've got it all in one little pile. I love that sneaky little I have to take a drink now out of his witch's brew mug.
Anyways,
Anyway,
going.
so it's the gateway to winter. It's classed as the final harvest for the year as well. So it's not only the harvest, you're bringing in all of the vegetables, crops, anything that's in there, anything that's still left, anything that's left after Samhain is said. There's many stories, different versions of this sort of story, that anything afterwards that you haven't harvested, you need to leave now because it'll be ruined by the fairies or the pucker, or it's for the dark goddess. And one of the things is that go to the black, they'll wee on the blackberries. That's one of the stories. And they'll urinate on the blackberries first. I'm like, okay, fair enough.
So unless you have a taste for exotic
yeah,
fairy pea riddled blackberries.
juice, yeah, harvest everything before. But then it's also the blood harvest as well. So it was, if you kind of think of it back in pagan agricultural sort of times when a lot of these customs and traditions were created, the winter was very long and harsh for them. There was nothing. So anything that they did have now, they had to preserve, and whatever they had to be able to have enough food to keep it alive over the winter. So they had to kind of look through their herds, keep the best breeding stock, and then the others were then slaughtered for meat and preserved to keep them going through the winter. So that's why it's also classed as the blood harvest. And then which brings in another association, which is like of the dark goddess and the dark god, and the association with afterlife and death and all of those kind of things as well. So there's that. And then if you follow the kind of Wiccan mythos or the Wiccan kind of wheel of the year, that sort of story, it's the god has moved to his aspect of the dreadlord of shadows. So he's already in the underworld. He's the comforter of souls, and we farewell him until the winter solstice when he's reborn. And then the goddess is coming into her aspect as the crone or a dark goddess, and she lights the Samhain fires. And then once she does that, she parts the veils using her own magic for her own descent into the underworld. So it's all about going within. So we're moving into that dark half of the year now. So everything, I mean, even if you look out now, even here, I mean, mind you, we are having a quite sunny day, but the nights are getting really cold, and you can really
freezing.
feel that. Yeah, like
I'm glad I have my plaid.
Yeah, that's right. Like you can feel that change
Yeah.
is coming. We're not quite, I guess, for the calendar, we're not quite into winter yet, but you can really feel that winter's here. We've done.
I feel like we're getting a lot of the winds from the Antarctic of late.
Yeah, everything's coming right up, so you can really feel that change, and we're moving to that. And that's when supposedly we all kind of start to, and even the earth itself starts to turn inwards a bit more. It's the energy comes within for us as well.
Which is ironic that we had the supermoon in Scorpio with the opposition of 5 planets in Taurus, because it was all about going within.
Yep.
And it's all at Samhain. So I'm like, oh my God, the only thing that would have been better is if it fell on Samhain. I'd be like,
yeah, I was going to say, can you imagine?
Because you're turning within, all the heebie-jeebies are coming out.
Everything.
The veil is thin, like, OMG.
The whole lot. Now
OMG.
that would be a big kablooey kind of sign.
Yeah, no thanks. I think this full moon has been epic enough. I don't need any more.
I was going to say it's enough. It's good that it'll start to taper off before we actually get to Samhain, so we can kind of bring the energies down a little bit.
Yeah, because
So
didn't we actually had a full moon on Halloween?
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you
It
imagine if we
actually
had one
fell.
on both?
I know. How cool would that be?
I don't
That
think
would
it's
be
I don't think
awesome.
it's like astrologically possible, but anyway, it's good
Yeah,
to
I don't
wish.
know. It's a
I
we
don't
can
think so.
wish. No,
The
probably
number of
isn't.
days between them, there's no way that it can line up. I don't think.
Yeah, probably. And also because we celebrate it more from like a calendar date sometimes rather than the astrological um, timing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it probably doesn't always think. So yeah, so it's all about as you mentioned, like the veils between the worlds are at their thinnest. It's about exploring those mysteries of birth, death, and rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
And we can also, so we're coming to it's often associated with ancestors and remembering our ancestors and those who have gone before us, whether we remember them or not, or know of them or not, but whether that's from blood or lineage through tradition, or it may be just people that you align with,
Or
that you want
spiritual
to
ancestors as
spiritual
well.
ancestors. Yep, that's it. Yep, anything like that. And then of course there's one I guess tradition that's come through as well is the Feast of the Dead or the Dumb Supper or the Red Meal, which is where you place an extra plate out for their ancestors to come in. You invite them into your house. It's always really important to have a particular time that they need to leave by as well, so that you're not just inviting everybody in to stay for whenever. And then it's done in silence. And the reason for the silence is not so much for it to be like a solemn, sad kind of thing, like a funeral or anything like that. It's actually so that you can hear the communication and you can commune with your ancestors or the spirits that have come. And then once it's finished, you ring the little bell and then you can talk and come back to it all. So yeah,
I like it.
yeah.
And you know what? I also like, this is one aspect of Samhain that I like, that it falls at this time of the year, because we
Mm,
in Australia celebrate Anzac Day on the
yeah,
25th of April, which is 5 days before Samhain. So it's kind of gearing us up
perfect.
for that. Like, because ancestors, like
Yeah.
a lot of people, myself included, around Anzac Day and around Remembrance Day, so 11th, 11th. So those two
Yeah.
times a year, which is funnily enough just after
I was
Halloween.
just about to say, I just
Like
realized that's
one's just
actually
before
after
Samhain and one's just after Halloween. Yeah.
Beltane, which is when
Or Beltane,
when
sorry.
the
Yeah.
veil, when the veils are the two times when they're at their thinnest.
And that's when people usually go on their like ancestral, like knowledge seeking,
Yeah.
thing, because of the fact that like all those websites, ancestry.com, heritage.com, all of them, or my heritage, they all put sales on because people
Yeah,
want
I
to
was gonna
find out
say.
who their ancestors were that fought in the wars and blah 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 and all that
Mm,
stuff. So it's like, it's just ironic that it seems to be that time of the year
when it
when
all comes out.
we need to do ancestral work anyway. So it's like,
Yeah, it lines up perfectly. And it does. And there's a lot of the similar kind of symbolism as well, because with Anzac Day, like it's lighting the candle and
mhm.
things like that, especially this year, because a lot of places couldn't actually have a proper dawn service and things like that. So it was lighting candles in people's driveways and things like that. And that's where the actual carving of the lanterns and things came from, was from the dumb supper or the red meal, where you would place a candle at the threshold and then in the windows to light the way for your loved ones to come
Yeah, so they
back,
know where to go.
where
Exactly.
to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Now I know that we touched on all the jack-o'-lantern mythos and stuff, more so
Yeah.
around Halloween, our episode.
Yeah.
Only because like we're not going to touch on any of that stuff because that's
No,
more specific to Halloween.
it is, because it's actually more an American thing, because there wasn't
Mm.
pumpkins. They didn't actually traditionally have pumpkins,
Now
because a
these
lot of this has come
turnips.
from, because this comes from Celtic kind of traditions. America's actually brought over the pumpkins. So
Mm.
before it was like gourds and things like that, and turnips.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, I think you had another story though that you wanted to share. Was that were we doing that now? I can't remember now. Oh
I
my god, I
can't
just
remember
went
if we were
blank.
going to do it. Okay, we'll do it.
Just do it
Let's do it.
anyway.
Let's do it. So it's a little story about Herne the Hunter. So he is often depicted as a god, sometimes a god of the forest and of the hunt. And there's actually a story that goes back to King Richard II. So they believe that he was actually a real person, and that it's then kind of come into the mythos and all of that sort of thing. So here's his general kind of story. So he was a gamekeeper in Windsor Forest, and he was a part of the hunting party that went out with the king to hunt deer and all the rest of it. And they had found a great deer. They had shot at it and it charged at the king. So Herne jumped in front of him trying to save the king and got a huge big gash in the side. So it was bleeding out. He'd taken the blow for the king, and it happened to be that a man who lived in the forest was a magician, sorcerer, local. I'm guessing he was probably like a cunning man or something like that back in those times. So he healed Herne, and one of the things to do that was to actually take the antlers from the stag and place them on his head. So if you're listening, you'll find some little synchronicities between a few gods and things like that, and the horn god. And then he was able to take it off once he had healed. So the king was super grateful because he'd taken the blow for him, that he gave him lots of riches and made him his head huntsman, everything. But there was a couple of other guys that were in the hunting party that were very jealous and wanted to frame Herne and to make him lose favor with the king. So they went out, placed some skins in Herne's hut to kind of to frame him, saying that he was going out hunting without the king and taking things for himself. They also went to the cunning man or the magician who had healed him and told him that Herne had got so much riches and all the rest of it, and it was actually him who had done all the work. So he cursed Herne as well. So then the next day when they went out for the general hunt, as they normally do, they didn't find any game. There was nothing. And then they went the next day, same thing, next day, same thing. So Herne had lost his ability to hunt. And so the king fired him. He ran into the forest. And then this is where the story deviates a little bit. We're not sure which way it goes. There's different versions of it, that he either took his own life or the two men who had framed him had actually murdered him. But they found him the next day hanging on a specific oak tree, that he died. And then, so the ghost of Herne came back to the king and told him what happened and what had really happened and what the two guys had done. So the king ordered them executed on the same tree that Herne was found. Now, it's said now that the two men are now also part of Herne's furious horde. So it's a bit like the Wild Hunt kind of stories as well. So this is where it kind of crosses over a little bit with the winter solstice. And so they come back and at different times. But it's said that if the furious horde is seen in Windsor Park, that it's to bring that it brings bad luck to the monarchy. So that they have to remember from now on that they've been cursed, that there's something bad going to happen. So yeah, that's a little story of Herne the hunter. And they actually, one of the kings afterwards, it's actually apparently kept within the royal family, because one of the kings actually chopped down the particular oak tree. Then hearing about the curse, they replanted something else there to make sure that it was going to still be okay. So they still apparently kind of placate that a little bit as well.
That's interesting because, like, as soon as you said the Wild Hunt, I looked in my book that I have specific for Samhain, and there's actually a whole section on the Wild Hunt.
Yeah,
because I remember when I was doing the research that I read, I'm like, wait, I know that word somewhere.
Yeah, the Wild Hunt, because it's also associated with Odin,
Yeah.
Norse mythology, and all of those, because it's also a time of like the psychopomp kind of gods, those ones that are like Anubis and things like that, the Valkyries who took the souls of the slain, and whether they went to Valhalla or not. So there's a lot of crossover there, because sometimes it's sort of associated with the winter solstice, but I think it's also quite perfect for Samhain, because that's what it's all kind of about, and the veils are between the thinnest.
Yeah. And also, like, as we always say in this podcast, so you have to do what works for you. Like,
That's right.
If for you the story makes most sense at Samhain, then all
Go
better
for
for you. Like, go for it and just embrace it.
Yeah.
Now I've decided I want a pair of antlers to wear on my head.
I know. I know. I want a headdress. I want the whole antler thing. That's me too. I have actually been looking.
So have I. Funny that you should say that, because so have I. Like, literally, because especially like this is going to be a bit of a weird like tangent, but going into the whole like kilt wearing and all that kind of stuff. Like, a lot of the kilt culture, they're pagans. Like, especially in gay men who wear kilts, a lot of them are pagans. And there's a lot of like festivals around the like world, like Celtic festivals and stuff, and they all get into their kilts and stuff and whatnot. And I've noticed that quite a few of them go out and they get headdresses like of antlers and stuff to wear to some of the Celtic festivals because of Kernunos. And so I was just like, oh, that looks really cool.
I know, it's like, maybe I could go get that too. Yeah,
I don't know where to get them from, but yeah.
No, I don't know either.
Like, I know that Elfheim does sell
they do.
Ethically sourced things made out of antler, but it's not like a...
Yeah, I think most I've found is that things are they're cast out of resin and things like that, because I think it would be super heavy. It would
Well,
have to be
I've
super
seen
heavy.
ones
I've
made of antler,
seen
but they
them.
usually turn them into like either a wand or a
Yeah, it's
some
not so
kind of a
much a headdress.
staff. It's not a
Yeah.
headdress, you know.
No, no. So, but even mentioning him, there's actually said that there's a little bit of crossover between him and Hearn because of like the horned god and the antlers and things like that as well, and being of the hunt and of the forests. So yeah, that's another one.
Oh, I
Yeah,
like it. Now this is
super
going in
close.
a little bit of a backtrack, but I
Yeah.
remember when you first started telling some of these stories about Samhain, and we're talking about the
Mm.
fairies.
Yes.
We talked
Yeah.
about the fairies and
Yeah.
whatnot. So there's
Yep.
actually like obviously we're talking not just the little pixie looking
No.
romanticized things with wings that flap
No.
around, like we're not talking about the fairy gardens that you create for your little 5-year-old girls and stuff. No, we're talking
No.
about
No.
actual fairies.
Yep.
Because Samhain is actually a time when, especially if you think of the Celtic lands, and I getting a lot of this reference from Outlander, yes I am. But no, in all honesty, like they believed in like Scotland and Ireland and places like that
Yep.
that fairy mounds, which is where their
Yes.
burial sites were, the fairy mounds were
Mhm.
sacred and you never ventured into them. Like it was
Yep.
actually forbidden to go onto a fairy mound and to do anything. And
Yep.
then you have that concept of changelings, how they believe that you would have to, if you're, that basically
Take the
that witches
babies.
would take the babies
Yep.
and swap it over for a changeling, all that kind of stuff, or switch it back.
Yeah.
So they used to leave their children out at night. Yes, that is, it has been,
Yes.
this is why I love Outlander though, because it's
Yes.
so on point
Yeah, they do
with the
actually have a
traditions
lot
of
of
pagan
yeah, they have a
life.
lot of historical kind of traditional things in there.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things that you can do now, if you're worried about fairies coming and
Mm.
doing some cheeky shit around your house
Because it is
or
kind of the
around
time of
you,
mischief and things like that as well, because the
yeah,
veils are thinnest for all worlds, not just the spirits of the dead, it's the other world.
yes. So one thing that you can do, just by getting 2 rowan wood sticks, you can cross them over.
Yep.
Do I have one here? I do not. I used to have one on my altar, but I think because that was for a specific binding spell, but it was using
Yeah.
rowan twigs.
Yeah.
But anyways, you can cross them over, and then using red thread, you basically bind, and with the intention
Cross it.
of keeping the fairies away.
Yep.
And then you can carry that on you as a talisman to keep the fairies away. So then that way they don't get up to mischief and all that kind of stuff. Because you can, there are some things that you can do that are like, because not all fairies are bad. Like you can obviously
No,
get
no,
the fairies
no.
on your side, but one thing that is commonly accepted is that the fairies are very literal. If you make
Yes.
a pact with the fairies and you don't stick to it,
They'll hold you accountable for that.
yeah. And
Very much
because
so.
they're tricksters and all that kind of stuff that
It's just that
yeah.
they don't see the things the same way that we do.
No.
Perceive things the
For
same
them,
way
a
that we
pact is
do.
a pact, a promise is a
Yeah,
promise.
that's
If you make
right.
an offering to the fairies and you say you're
Yeah.
going to do something, you
Then you
better
need to do
fricking
it.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Get doing it.
But some other things you can do this time
Yeah.
of year. So one of the things that I like to do, I mean, I do this on all the Sabbats, but
Yeah.
just like in slightly different ways. So there's one that you can do is a Samhain house blessing. So oftentimes ancient pagans used to prepare Samhain by doing an intense cleaning and organizing of the house, because
Hmm.
obviously you're then inviting the spirits back into your house. You want the house to be as presentable as possible.
Yeah, that's right. It's like no different than if you wanted people, if you had visitors
Yeah.
coming over, that quick 10-minute dash. I wish I could clean my house like that all the time. The amount of stuff I can get done in that 10 minutes before somebody's popping over.
Yeah, right. Because you could just done.
It's all finished.
But yeah, so for this particular one, obviously you start off by removing any clutter and getting rid of any garbage, anything that you no longer serves you, just getting rid of it. Just throw it all out or donate it to Goodwill or do whatever you need to just get rid of the clutter. If it's no longer
Yep.
serving your purpose, gone, goodbye.
Yep.
Start off with a physical cleaning, and then we're working through each of the elements. So you can smudge or cleanse by air,
Yeah.
meaning that using a sage or some form of incense, that's something that creates smoke.
Yeah.
Then after that, they say that you should grab a blue candle and you smudge by fire. So by walking into each one of the rooms and basically with the intention that as the fire burns, it's burning any stagnant energies and
Transmuting.
transmuting
Yep.
the energy and
Transmuting
whatnot.
everything.
And then lastly, you do a smudging or cleansing by water and earth. Now, there's obviously many different versions of this. Some
Yep.
people like to put herbs in some kind of a little, like a spritz bottle. Other people, like I think, Vicky, you said salt and water.
Yeah, salt and
Used to
water
like
because it's
anoint.
representative of earth and things. Yep.
Yeah. And so you're just like anointing each of the rooms to bless them, so to
Yep.
speak. And then after that, you can make an offering to the household deities or the deities to which you pray. asking for their blessing and protection of the household.
I like
So
that.
for me, my patron household deity is actually Kuan Yin. Now,
Yeah,
I know that's not traditionally associated with witches, but it's just something that as a
doesn't matter.
spiritualist, I embrace.
Yeah.
And it's like that energy that I like her to bless our house with, that compassion and mercy and all that kind of stuff, because I'm all
It's,
about that stuff.
I was gonna say she's really beautifully fitting for that. Like it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for protection and again, just cleansing in general, like, because
Mm.
it's basically,
Yeah.
I haven't positioned her here yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on it, but
Wait,
my
do it
goal is
well.
to have her at the front door so
Yeah.
that anyone who's coming in, basically they have to face her on their way in. And if they're
Yes.
coming to their
Love that.
house with ill intent, then she'll turn them away,
Yeah.
is my intention anyway.
Yep.
So I'm just waiting on certain
Just
life events to
nudging that
change.
to happen.
In other words, convincing of the husband, or just
Yes.
putting it there and having him not
Just
notice.
see how long it takes him to work it out. Or
Yeah.
yeah. Love it.
So, but then, okay, if you're thinking now, I want to do something a little bit more personal.
Yes.
So we're talking
I
about
like
cleansing the house. We're talking about all of that kind of stuff. But what about you as a person? Now, the full moon has just happened. I've done a lot of purging.
Yep.
But something that came up for me when I was doing my full moon ritual and I was like getting in touch with all those deep emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was
Yep.
like, as I'm still doing now, sipping on my moon water, something that has come up for me, because obviously my Mars is situated in Scorpio when I was born. So the more I've looked into that, because the full moon is now in Scorpio, I've noticed that, and Mars is sitting in Cancer at the moment right now. So my Mars sign is
the
Scorpio,
flip.
but it's gone to Cancer, and Cancer is normally my sun sign and my Mercury sign and my Venus sign. But anyway,
Mhm.
but because Mercury and Venus are now sitting in Taurus,
Yep.
like there's just this, in my mind, it makes sense where I'm going with this
Where you
tangent.
going? Yeah,
But
yeah.
basically, because the moon's in Scorpio, and then what is normally in Scorpio is now in Cancer, so I'm kind of, the moon's telling me to go introspective because the moon controls Cancer, and then but because
Go
what
into
was
the
normally in
flesh.
Scorpio is Mars, which is now in Cancer, so that's making me go into I'm kind of just analyzing all that part of
Yes.
myself.
Yep.
And then because my other planets that normally sit in Cancer are sitting in Taurus, it's all about the self-love, self-nurturing, like all that kind of stuff.
All that
So
sort
I
of
was doing a lot of really
energy.
deep digging into some of the shit that I want to cleanse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Which
something,
is Scorpio as well, isn't it? Like even as a overarching kind of archetype, it's that
yeah.
deep stuff.
But just because of like all of them being in those
Yeah,
places,
yeah.
I
You've
was
got them
really
everywhere.
looking into it. And one of the things I realized is that there's a lot of like, I guess, baggage that I've been holding on to. Whilst I've been with my partner for, sorry, my husband, I shouldn't say partner, he's my husband. Whilst I've been with my husband for 17 years this year,
Yeah.
so it'll be 17 years in November, I've noticed that there's still some things that I've held onto from past relationships. So
Ah.
one of the things that I'm going to do this Samhain is actually this love uncrossing spell. So the intention behind this one is basically just to uncross all of the things, like basically to remove all of the
Remove
unwanted
them.
juju.
Yep.
So then that way you're more open to the love that you're experiencing right now, as opposed to
Yes.
like a projection of what you've received in the past.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with
Getting
this
rid of
one,
those attachments.
the intention is that you so we draw a figure eight on a piece of paper, and then inside each one of the little loops, you draw 5 little plus signs. So you should have 10 in total. You sit the piece of paper down, and then you grab basically something you can carve a candle with. So you need to carve your name onto the side of the candle, and then you get some oil, so root oil, and you rub it up the candle from the base to the wick.
To the top. Yep.
Yep. So you rub root oil on that one, and then you basically take some of your hair. So you've got a piece of paper with the figure eight, the 10 plus signs. You put your hair down on that, and then the candle on top of that. Obviously, all of this is sitting on a heat-proof dish.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a space that you're ready if anything catches fire, you're all good.
Yeah. Yep. And the intention is that once you've done that, you then light the candle, and as it burns, chant 7 times. So this is the little chant you have to say.
Yeah.
Samhain day to Samhain night, take away my own heart's blight, free my heart from seals and blocks, the world of love now unlocks.
Oh, I like that.
And you have to allow the candle to burn for 7 minutes a day, and when it's completely gone, you then carry the seal in your pocket or in your wallet. So that's supposed to
fun, I
help
like
you
it.
like remove all those,
Get rid of all
just the
the
bad
attachments.
juju.
Yeah, any of those little attachments that you still kind of have in there that's not
And now,
need
if
anymore.
that one's not good enough, if you
Well, I
think
like
that
that
there's
one.
like some even more baggage that you need to deal with,
Yep.
you can do a spell to release old loves of the past.
Ooh, I like this.
So for this one, what we want to do, because it's the Samhain is an in-between time.
Yes.
So we're in the in-betweens.
Yeah.
So it's an excellent time to release the energy by letting go of old karmic bonds and gift yourself with a chance to move forward with your life. So for this one, you need to get a cord or piece of twine that is large enough to tie around your waist with an additional 2 feet of cord remaining.
Yep.
Then you want to also get some lemongrass essential oil. Oh my God.
You
What
got
did I
heaps
say
from
to you
me.
the other day?
Yeah, you got.
I forgot to change my online order and
And
they're
you're getting
shipping me more
more.
lemongrass. So I'm like,
You got lots.
how perfect.
Yeah.
Must
I
have known.
love it. See?
Anyway, so you need some lemongrass essential oil to do for after you've done the work.
Yep.
And then to make sure that this is irreversible, you want to rub a little bit of walnut oil on your fingers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then with this spell, it's going to, because this one is spells of release, act as cleansing ceremonies. Make sure that you have a bath beforehand so you're physically cleansed, as you should be doing before any ritual work anyway.
It's always good practice before anyway.
Yeah. So once you've bathed, you want to dress comfortably and then establish your sacred space how you normally do.
Yeah.
Then from there, take the cord around your waist, and while it's around you, add some timber hitch knots to tie the ends together.
Mhm.
And then adding 1 knot for each relationship energy that you intend to release. Now, when you say relationship, this is, as a life coach, I always talk about this with people. Relationships don't just mean romantic ones.
Yeah.
You can also use this for other relationships that you're wanting to release the bad juju from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then basically what you'll do is as you tie each knot, you need to think about a specific person and the intense memories, connections, and feelings you carry for that person, and take care to remember both the good and the bad, because you need to do both sides. Otherwise, you're going to create an imbalance. And then you follow this process for each knot until you have, there's no more cord left to go.
Yeah.
So then you want to spread your arms and legs out. So you're putting your, visual.
Kind of like a star shape.
Hands out to the side, feet out,
Yeah.
Yeah, feet out. So it's like that Da Vinci's symbol.
Da Vinci's man with the circle goes around it, which is basically kind of like a pentagram.
A pentagram, yeah. Exactly. Or pentacle, yeah, you're right. And then you want to visualize the way these energies bind you and how they disrupt the flow of energy between you and the greater universe. And once you feel this energy as viscerally as you can, now when I say viscerally, you want to be feeling that, like really amp up increase the intensity inside of your nervous system, everything. So you're feeling it.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, so you want to visualize the way they bind you and how they disrupt the flow of energy. And then once you feel it viscerally, you can pick up the last knot you tied and untie it. Take a few deep breaths as the energy that binds you flows back out into the universe and out of your life. And then then you would move on to the next knot, do the same thing.
Keep going.
And then the next knot, do the same thing. Once you've untied all the knots, you let the rope drop from your waist to the floor. Rub your hands and your solar plexus in lemongrass scented oil, taking deep breaths as the oil soaks into your skin. Then anoint the crown of your head, your heart, and your belly, giving yourself a fresh capacity to connect to others in a loving way. After cleaning your sacred space, you should either burn or bury the cord. Because remember, that cord is symbolic. It's got
holding
all
that stuff. Yeah, it's got it all in there. Get rid of it.
So,
I
know it's a little bit different to where we take.
Cool. I love it.
So when we talk about love spells, because we did an episode only a couple ago that was about
wasn't too far away.
Love and sex, magic, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's this type of love magic is when someone says, "Oh, can you do a love spell?" This is the type of shit that I'm into, because it's all about digging into those shadows, digging into all that shit that you've been suppressing and repressing for years,
and feeling those things, because that's the hard part. You do have to feel it to let it go.
Absolutely.
To get it out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And then one other little fun one that you can do. So if you've got little kitties, this one will work for them as well.
Yeah.
So because obviously now the night is getting longer because we're heading into winter now.
Yeah, we're heading into winter.
So, and also because the veil is so thin, there might be some little psychic shadow nasties that is dotted around and stuff. So a little fun one that you can do is you can gather some rocks, obviously cleanse them and cleanse them of any unwanted energies and whatever. Obviously ask Mother Earth for permission before you go taking rocks from.
Awesome.
Ask the rocks themselves, connect with the rocks, make sure they're happy to do this for you.
Yeah.
And then if they give you their permission, basically you take each stone and you talk to it as if you're talking to a person. And what you want to then do is like breathe life into it and then like basically give it a command. So asking it to protect you from any harm that you can't see.
Yes.
And then what you can either do is you can either carry them in your pocket or in like your sock or somewhere. Or if you're a crafty witch, you can even, like, for example, if I was wearing a throw like this, not that I'd do that to this one, but you could actually stitch them in, like make a little pocket type thing and you could stitch them in to the corners or whatnot.
So it's actually
then that
there
way,
all the time.
yeah, so you want it on something that you wear a lot. I mean, that would actually be beneficial to weight this down.
I was going to say it would actually help hold it down too. So again, you want to make sure that it's not a huge rock.
No, not
you don't be carrying it with you.
You don't want to be getting this.
No, that's right.
You're wanting something like little stones and stuff, little pebbles.
Yeah.
And then you ask them to basically protect you. And then once they've done that, because obviously they came from the earth neutralizes any negative forces and whatnot.
Yep.
So once you're done and you feel safe and you don't no longer need their services, obviously thank them.
Yes, definitely.
And then return them to the earth so that they can serve someone else.
Yep. So it can keep going on. That's really cool. I love that.
So,
and that's a really great one to do with kids too, that they can be a part of as well.
I mean, because, kids like having pet rocks and all that kind of stuff. So you never know. They may bond with that rock and that rock may then be able to serve multiple purposes throughout.
Yeah, that's right.
Become upbringing.
That's it. Become like an ally, a spiritual ally.
Yeah, from witchling to witch.
Yep. I love it.
If they're so inclined. But
if they want to. That's right. If they want to, it's good.
But yeah, so then, okay, mundane stuff. We touched on it at the start of the episode, but ancestral altars.
Yes.
So this is a fun one. We'll finish with this one, I think, because this one's a nice little fun one. Like, as I already said, like I kind of touched on it already, but I've been doing a lot of digging into the family tree. Yeah. So my husband is a Douglas. The Douglas is one of the major clans in Scotland. So obviously me watching Outlander, getting into this whole kilt frenzy, buying my plaid, buying my kilt, buying all the things.
Getting the things. It's nothing to do with Jamie from Outlander.
A little? No, maybe a lot. No. I actually really enjoyed it.
It is, but it's really fascinating though to really dig into all of those things, like to find where they all are.
Well, because now I want to go visit his castle.
Yeah.
Even though his castle is in ruins because it burnt down. But anyway, still want to go see it.
See
why
the
not?
site. Yeah.
Why not? And it's funny that out of all the Douglases, I'm the one that wears the plaid.
I know.
And I'm married in, not even.
Okay.
Anyway, it's fine.
It's fine. It's all good.
But yeah, so as we said before, like a lot of people do ancestral work because of Anzac Day, and it's a good time of year. So if you don't know much about your family of origin, now's a good time to do it. And then when we're talking ancestors, we don't just mean ancestors as in blood ancestors.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be blood.
No.
I mean, it's interesting to look into that and find out if you don't know a lot about that. But blood is only sort of one aspect of ancestor work, isn't it?
Yeah, because I always say there's ancestors of blood and ancestors of the heart.
Yeah.
So which is like anyone that you have any form of heart connection with. Yeah. So even if they're not related to you, but they've passed on, or that, or even someone that you admire, like for example, one of my spiritual ancestors, I often talk about Scott Cunningham because being a gay man who did so much for the witchcraft community, mainly Wicca, but like the witchcraft community, his works inspired a whole generation of Wiccans and witches to come out of the woodwork and whatnot. And so because he was a gay man, like I consider him one of my ancestors of the heart, or one of my spiritual ancestors. So not that there's like, I mean, with that ancestor altar, it is really what you make it.
Yeah, it really is. It can be whatever you want. Like it could be photos, it can be representations, candles, leaving offerings and things there that maybe like if you had a nana that really loved sweets or something like that, like you can leave those kind of things that have some kind of meaning to it as well.
But also remember that if you're giving an offering to an ancestor, that doesn't mean that you get to eat it.
No.
That's for them.
That's for them. It doesn't get eaten by you.
No, absolutely not.
And you can return that to the earth. That's one of the other ways to give that offering as well.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
a fun little thing that you could do as well. And
Yeah.
it's also an interesting way that you can, if you have children, just even sitting around and telling stories of like departed loved
Yes.
ones, or like, if you know your origin story, or something about like, your family history or whatever it
Yeah.
might be, it's a perfect time to just share that. So whilst we're talking about magical things, like this is an easy way of incorporating the mundane
With the
into
magical.
the magical, because you're
Yeah.
doing it at a magical time of year, but
That's
it's
right.
something mundane like teaching them about the family tree.
Yeah, and like sharing stories and funny memories or memories and things like that. Like that's all a beautiful part of it.
Mm,
That's a way, and then that's also a beautiful way of connecting with your ancestors as well. Like beyond just like magical work or spiritual connecting that way. It's lovely to just keep their memory alive, kind of
yeah,
thing, being
which
remembered.
is beautiful.
Yeah, which is all lovely.
So I've covered all the
I
points
think
I
it's pretty
had.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
the only other stuff I had is if we wanted to do some of particular gods or goddesses or deities and things like that,
Oh, of course.
like
What
some
am I saying?
correspondences.
Correspondences. Yes, I have a whole section at the back of my book.
So some correspondences that you can use for this time of the year. So some of the gods and goddesses, you have Persephone, Ceridwen, Skadi, Norse from Norse culture, the Kaliak, um, Morrigan.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably most of them, some of them, those
Is
kind
that
of things. Anything that's sort of, I guess, any of the ones that are associated with like the dark goddess or the underworld or that birth, death, rebirth cycle kind of
but
thing,
then I mean,
resurrection going.
depending on, you've also got like Lilith and Kali,
Yeah,
Isis, Ishtar, Macha, Erishkigal, and Inanna.
Inanna, yeah, Baba Yaga.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I just thought about her, Baba Yaga. So there's a few. There's probably heaps more, but there's a
Yeah.
few to kind of get you going. And the gods, Anubis, Hades, Hern, Osiris, Pluto, Set.
Osiris,
Yep.
Horned God, the Dagda, Kernunos.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah,
Did I
yeah.
say the Horned God? I don't know if I said that.
Yeah, you did. Said
Yeah, I
Horn
did. I
God.
did say Horned God.
Yep. As an
Um,
archetype on its own.
then for colors, now obviously all of your yellows, oranges, reds are in season. I mean,
Yep.
more so
Black.
yellows and oranges, I think, actually, because reds
Yeah.
is different time of year. But that, like, I'm just looking at my,
Yeah, and it's getting towards those deeper starting to get to the deeper colors of them all.
yeah. So like the blacks and browns and grays and
Browns.
whatnot.
Yep. Purples, deep wine red,
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things. And yeah, and then of course it's a great time for divination and things like that as well. There's one little one that you can do, which is a wax scrying.
Yeah, you forgot to mention
Yeah, I
that.
forgot about that. I just thought about it just then. So yeah, that's another thing that you can do is wax scrying. So you want to get a nice big bowl, so like an earthen bowl or just a one that's I guess one color, so like a darker one. Fill that up full of
I mean,
water.
unless you have
A cauldron is perfect. That's it. Cauldron's perfect. So you want to fill that up with water. Have a candle there that's been burning for a little while that has some melted wax, has that little wax pool happening. So then you want to grab your finger and swirling around the water, circling the water in a sunwise position. So going around, around, around. Then once the water's spinning, just gently drip the wax into the water and then seeing the patterns and things that emerge and see what they might mean for you.
But what if you don't know how to interpret them?
Well, you could always look it up. But one of the things you could always look it up. But one of the things I still think with most things, it's great to go look at, even if it's like, say, for instance, animals or things like that, what their meanings are. It's great to go look them up and see what their meanings are. But also really stop and think about what that may mean for you. So look for different shapes, look for patterns. It may look like an animal or may look like something in particular, and start to think about what that might mean for you. And you can get into a nice meditative state, staring into the water, and as it goes, you may even find that different patterns and it might move and things like that for you as well. Or just wait till it's cooled and grab out the shape and have a look at what that shape may mean for you.
Awesome.
But it's a fun little one that you can try.
And if you're
Something different.
into crystals or stones at this time of year, I'm plugging this one on for a particular reason. So the stones that are known for this time of year are carnelian, which brings healing, peace, protection, and sexuality.
Yep.
Jet, which is actually petrified wood. So that one is absorption, divination, protection from nightmares, reflection, and shadows. Moonstone, which is my birthstone. That one's balance, divination,
too.
feminine influence, the goddess, healing, hidden knowledge, insight. Onyx, which is protection, self-defense, and self-discipline.
And
Obsidian, which is all about depth, divination, and grounding. So, not to we were talking about scrying. I mean, here's one I prepared earlier.
Here we go.
My little scrying mirror made out of black obsidian.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not into mirrors, I mean, I also have this crystal ball, which is also black obsidian. And if you're not into crystal balls, I mean,
what else are you gonna
all met my precious. So
this is really their time, isn't it?
It really is, and they know it.
Yeah, they're wanting to be
when I removed them off the altar temporarily to record this episode, I was literally I almost felt like excuse me.
I was about to say, how
dare we be removed from the altar? This is our time of year.
This is our space.
And I'm like,
this is our time.
I just need to make it look pretty for an episode. I'll put you back, I promise. And obviously one last correspondence, because you all know that I like my tarot card references. So for this time of year, one of the biggest, most important cards. Any guesses?
This time of the year, the death card?
Yeah. So the death card would be one of your major ones that you may want to draw that out from your deck and meditate on it. Because it's obviously this time of year is all about death.
Yep.
It's about,
and again, that cycle,
dying, like that death, rebirth, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's one that you could refer to. There's also the high priestess, because obviously she's the one who's tapping into her intuition, sourcing of knowledge. She's the keeper of all wisdom. She's able to peel the veil.
Yeah, I was gonna say she's 1 foot in between, isn't she?
Yeah. So there's the high priestess, and then lastly the wheel of fortune, because we're at that turning point in the year. We're starting a new cycle because it's it's new year. Yep. So wheel of fortune is also another one that you may I'm not even joking. I have drawn the Wheel of Fortune 4 days in a row this week.
Oh, there we go.
And shout out to Anthony again. He can back me up on this, because I actually said it to him. I'm like, I keep drawing the Wheel of Fortune. And he's like, that's a good card to have. I'm like, but I still don't know what it means, because I keep drawing it.
And I'm like the same thing all the time. That's it.
Because I always draw a daily card just to contemplate on for the day, get inspirational guidance or whatever. But when I kept Wheel of Fortune is one of those ones I'm like, I need context.
Yeah, it's like, give me a bit of something else. That's it. I need a bit of something.
And I know I could easily draw another card, but I like to keep it to a single card pool per day.
Yeah.
And that usually gives me my inspiration for the day of what I need to focus on or contemplate or meditate on or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And the Wheel of Fortune, every time I'm like, oh, come on, that could be anything.
It could be a lot of things.
Because there's the ordinary view, there's the reversed view, there's the blockage view, there's so many different ways you could interpret it.
That's right. There's all sorts. But now here's a new one. The wheel is turning for the seasons. A new phase.
So, okay, I'm gonna have to take that away and contemplate that, because I just had a little aha moment. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take that one off camera and think about that some more. But so I hope you guys have all enjoyed this episode of Witchin and Bitchin.
Yay!
If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I got these cute little letters that I decided to make a little sign with.
It looks super
I tried to do the whole Hollywood sign and have them standing on the altar, and then have Witchin standing on top of and Bitchin, but they would fall over like Jenga or dominoes. And I'm like,
this is not working how I wanted it to work.
No. So solution number 2, we have this lovely floating. It's like I cast a spell on them to float in the air.
Yep. It's like the candles from Hogwarts.
Yeah. So they're just lovely and just like
looks awesome.
Dangling, and
I love it.
No, I'm not really. They're stuck to the wall.
Doesn't matter.
But anyways, we hope you have enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.